Hello, friends. Welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper. My name is Avery, and I'm your host. This is episode 64, and we're talking about meditation, different ways to use meditation, how to deepen your meditation practice to access different parts of the spiritual realm or to make different types of contact, or there's just a world of things that you can do. But meditation in itself, I think, is very misunderstood and sometimes confusing to a lot of people. So I really want to break down kind of the mechanism of meditation and how you can practice it in a way that is not overwhelming or complicated at all. Before I get started, if you would take a minute to pause what you are doing and go leave a review on the podcast for Dare Me to Prosper, those reviews make a really big difference. So if you have enjoyed at least 2 of my episodes, I would love a review. Okay. Meditation. It depends on where you are, in regards to meditation, whether you've never done it, and this is kind of an introductory episode, or if you practice meditation regularly and you're just looking to kind of deepen your practice. Either way, I think you'll get something out of this episode. But traditionally, a lot of people use meditation purely for relaxation. I feel like, especially prior to about 10 years ago, meditation was mostly known, except in the few spiritual communities, which were much smaller than they are today. Meditation was often generally just known as kind of like a relaxation tool to quiet the mind, to reduce anxiety and things like that, which it absolutely can and does do those things. But I would say that's only like the very surface level potential of what meditation can offer. So the idea of meditation is that essentially you are shifting your state of awareness. You are taking your awareness from outside of your body in the 3D physical world to inside of your body to the internal world, not just like your physical body, but your mental space. And there's layers to how deep you can go within that internal space. You can just close your eyes and kind of focus on your physical body. And that's a very simple, surface level way to practice a form of meditation. But then the more you practice and the more you are able to detach from the 3D, from the physical world during meditation, the deeper you can go into this inner space, into this inner world, which is what allows you to access different layers of non-physical perception. Because this is how I want you to think of it. We all have direct access to the spiritual realm. And spiritual realm sounds very like Lord of the Rings, but really it's just the existence of consciousness outside of our 3D space. So when I say spiritual realm, I just mean out when you leave the physical and we are no longer in this like 3D condensed existence, the energy still exists. You as a conscious soul still exist without your body. And so meditation is almost a way to kind of disconnect from your body in a sense and access your pure soul energy, your consciousness that is not tied to the physical 3D. And when you are doing that, you are also accessing all the rest of consciousness that exists outside of the physical. Does this make sense? So to me, and again, these are my personal beliefs, take it or leave it, to me, it's similar to kind of what you would say you're accessing when you think about the afterlife or when you think of heaven, like the place, the existence of the divine, of God, of spirit, of the angels, of, past loved ones, everything that exists outside of just the physical 3D exists in what I am referring to as the spiritual realm. Okay. And your soul naturally has access to that because your soul is a part of that. We are all pieces of the divine. We are all pieces of God, right? And so we all have a direct connection to the divine, to God, to spirit, to the universe, whatever you want to call it, just inherently because you are part of it. Your soul is part of it. Okay. We feel disconnected when we come into our 3D bodies because the 3D is very dense. It kind of weighs us down energetically. It's of a much lower frequency, which disconnects us from this very high frequency, very light, very open energy of the spiritual world. So the way that we kind of break beyond that barrier is by utilizing meditation to disconnect from our bodies a little bit, our physical bodies, and go inside, tuning into our inner energy, our souls, our higher selves, which exist outside of our physical bodies. Is this making sense so far? So the act of meditation is tuning into that world by disconnecting, not fully, obviously, you still exist in your body, we're not dying, but disconnecting enough, turning inward enough that that connection becomes much more clear and much easier to access, okay? Because ordinary waking consciousness is very externally focused, right? We have our five senses. We are very attached to the outer physical world because that is how our bodies interact with and exist within this physical planet. But that outer world is very, again, externally focused and mentally noisy. It draws your attention constantly outside of yourself, which makes a subtle perception, which makes subtle energies that are within you very difficult to notice. And so what meditation is doing is it is reducing all of that noise, reducing all of the static, and taking you away from all of the external, and it's quieting all of that and quieting your mind and quieting your ego so that you can actually hear and perceive those inner signals, which is what shifts your state of consciousness. It shifts your state of awareness. And the whole spiritual realm exists in this other state of awareness. So it's like it exists already. You're already in the spiritual realm right here in your physical body. You're just shifting your state of awareness from the physical to the energetic. And so you are basically, and I use this analogy a lot, you are tuning your radio station from the 3D to the energetic. You are shifting the radio station so you are in line with perceiving something else. So it's not another place, it's just a different awareness of where you are in this moment. So meditation is not creating that connection, it's just revealing what is already in existence. I've used this analogy before as well, but it's similar to how everyone has eyeballs and everyone can see, but if you keep your eyes closed, you still have the eyeballs, you're just not using them. But technically, you could go throughout your entire life and just never open your eyes. And you might never even know that you have this gift of sight if your eyes stayed closed all of the time. That's what this connection is to spirit. We all have this tool, we all have this gift. Not all of us are using it. You could almost think of meditation as like a third state in terms of you have your waking state, right? You're very conscious of your outer world, of your 3D, you're using all your senses. You have your sleeping state where you're not using any of those senses. Your brain is in a completely different state of awareness, and your waking consciousness is asleep, okay? Meditation is almost like a third option where you're awake, but your brain is in a totally different state and your awareness, your consciousness is tuned in to a completely different energetic frequency. Okay, but here are some reasons that people often struggle with getting into this deeper meditative state. One of the most common ones that I see very often and have struggled with this myself as well, is trying to meditate when your nervous system is still activated. So if you are even in a low state of fight or flight, or even a low state of just frustration or irritation or anxiety, anything that makes your nervous system feel slightly activated, your body is going to resist going into deeper states of consciousness. Because basically your nervous system is telling your body that there is some sort of outer threat. Even if it's subtle, even if it's just like a slightly elevated heart rate, your body's like, wait, we can't fully go into a meditative state. There might be a threat that we need to protect ourselves from. So that's happening on the physical side, not to mention energetically, your energy is all scattered and, nervous system triggers the energy of fear or anxiety, which is a very low frequency. It's also not allowing you to get into the right energetic vibration that you would need to in order to sink in that deeper brain state. Also, more collectively speaking, we have been culturally conditioned to not trust what we cannot see or prove in a scientific manner. Now, really, meditation has been proven in many, many ways to do lots of things beyond just helping our physical body. Now meditation actually has been studied in various different ways and testing various things. But we still have this kind of lingering cultural conditioning where we don't trust our inner world or our inner knowing. And so people get blocked oftentimes when they are trying to access this deeper consciousness, their intuition, because they have this underlying belief that it's not trustworthy. Now, it is like riding a bike. It is a skill that you need to develop. So it's not like every single thought you ever have is, straight truth from source. Sure, you have to develop it, but that's not unlike anything else that we deal with. You are constantly throughout your day using your discernment to decipher, what information you should take in and what information you might need to be more cautious with or research a little bit more. We do that anyway. This is no different. It's not that it's not trustworthy. It's just that you need to practice knowing what is your original thought, your ego thought, your conscious thought versus what is intuition, what is a download, what is information coming from outside of your physical body. But if you are not trusting that your inner knowing has truth to it, if you're not trusting that you have access to divine truth, that your intuition can be and very often is accurate, the more you develop it, that doubt is going to block your access because it's an underlying belief. And speaking of energetic blocks, lots of different kind of negative, dense, low frequency energy, which oftentimes comes in the form of emotions or wounds or, that shadow work stuff, that deep stuff that sits in your body also functions as an energetic block that makes it very difficult for you to access your intuition. We talk about this all the time. That's why processing your emotions and healing those inner wounds, that is what clears that energy out and allows you much clearer, much more open access to your intuition, to higher consciousness. This is why that's one of the first things we work on when you are trying to develop your psychic senses or develop your intuition. The first thing you have to do is clear out your vessel, clear out your foundation to make sure that, the runway is open in the first place, rather than trying to get started only to find out that, we're being blocked in this certain area. So now let's go back and try to unblock that. Another big thing, and I talk about this all the time as well, is expectations that people have. It is such a common misconception that when you are tuning into your intuition, when you are tuning into higher consciousness, that you're going to get some kind of like booming vision where you just like black out and you get this movie style vision, or you hear this booming voice in your head, or it's like something really extreme and prominent and loud that happens within your mind. That is just not how it works. Over time, it certainly gets more clear and more obvious to you the more that you develop it. But no matter what, receiving intuitive messages is very subtle. And not even just messages, but feelings or gut knowings. Accessing whatever it is via your intuition, via higher consciousness, is always very subtle. Even the most seasoned psychics have to quiet their mind and go inside and focus on what they are receiving. Because no matter what, you are a human in a human body who is very anchored into the 3D world. You have to be able to put that aside and turn inward and still your energy in order to connect. And so that's a major block, is that people go in expecting something really dramatic, and then you think you're not receiving anything. You think you're not connecting with higher consciousness because it's not dramatic. And the whole time it was never going to be dramatic. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey, in your evolution, it's going to be subtle. The only thing that changes is how aware you are of your own ego thoughts versus intuitive thoughts. And this is something that I feel like people often need the most help with, the most assistance with, because it is so common for people to start trying to develop their intuition, trying to meditate more, trying to get into these deeper states and feel like, I don't know if I'm making this up. I don't know if what I'm really getting is my thoughts or if it's intuitive. Is it anxiety or is it intuitive? This is where I work with one-on-one clients in order to figure that out, in order to practice, in order to work out what their strongest gifts are, what's blocking them, what shadow work do you still have to do, what energetic baggage do you have clinging to you? What does talking to your higher self actually sound like? And how do you know if that's what you're connecting with? Are you on the path of your highest alignment, of your highest timeline, where you're actually headed towards your best possible life? Or are you not really in line with that? Are you not at a current trajectory where you are headed directly towards what you want? This is what we do in personal one-on-one sessions. And so some of that involves personal psychic readings. Some of that involves you bringing questions that you want answered. But either way, when you are trying to deepen your meditative practice, when you are trying to develop that psychic intuition, these are the things that you have to learn and look for. Removing the blocks, healing the shadows, figuring out which gifts are strongest for you. How do they show up? What does your higher self sound like versus what does your ego sound like? How do you connect with your guides versus your higher self? How do you get past certain levels of meditation? Maybe you're practicing meditation and you can only get so deep and you feel like there's more beyond where you are and you don't know how to get there. This is all within what we work on in a one-on-one space. So if you're interested in working one-on-one or if you have any questions, there's more information listed there. So now let's talk about your actual meditative practice. What is the best way to approach meditation if you are trying to take this practice seriously and really have your best shot at tuning into higher consciousness? This is the part a lot of people skip, and it's really important that you don't. And that is preparing and grounding your energy before you really get into the meditation. You cannot just leap into a deep meditative state instantly. It just does not work that way. There are layers within the states of consciousness that you want to move through. And so when you're in this very dense, very physical, very 3D, you can't just like jump way deep into this theta brain state without any sort of process that you move through. You need to make sure that you are grounding and emotionally regulating yourself to create the best state of awareness in order to get to the most effective starting point. Because again, if you try to enter a meditation when you're highly dysregulated or when your nervous system is elevated or activated even a little bit, you're going to find that your meditation is going to be noisy or confusing or scattered. Like you're not going to be able to really quiet your mind the way that you need to. Okay. Another thing that's really, 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 really important here is setting intentions. I should do a whole episode on this. You guys don't understand how important it is to set an intention. And when I say set an intention, I mean you're not wishing, you're not asking, you're not begging, you're not trying. You are setting the intention. You are coming in and saying, this is what I'm going to do. Because so much of your frequency and the energetic place that you exist at all times has to do with the intention that you claim, okay? This affects manifestation. This affects literally your state of being. This affects everything. This is the same reason why prayer tends to work or not work, is because you can be in a state of asking and begging, or you can be in a state of claiming and setting an intention and simply stating that this is what's happening or this is who I am. The difference in those two energies, I cannot overstate it. So when you go into a meditation, you are setting an intention. And this works for protection, this works for grounding, this works for emotionally regulating. So when you're going into a meditation, make a statement. I'm open to only what supports my highest clarity, my highest well-being. My energy is protected and sovereign. I release and now am disconnected from any negative energy or entity that is connected to me or my energy in any way. I cleanse my physical vessel from any negative energy that does not serve me. My body is calm and regulated and safe. When you set intentions, it acts as a really powerful energetic filter. Your intention is what sets the frequency that you are in, okay? Because remember, our goal is to match the frequency of the spirit realm. We are shifting our consciousness from one frequency to another frequency. And so before you really get into your meditation, go ahead and get into a meditative state, sit in a quiet space or lay down. Personally, I like to lay down because otherwise I'm sitting there going, my back hurts. I need to grab my bag. Why? Because I'm old, apparently. But I feel like I can just drop all of the thinking about my physical body when I'm laying down and I'm not even using any muscles or anything. But whatever feels comfortable for you. Get into that space, close your eyes, make sure it's quiet. You can listen to meditative music if you like, or you can have complete silence, whatever you feel like helps you get in the zone. And then that's when you start setting the intentions. Like, okay, I'm releasing the negative energy. I'm grounding. Another good visual is to, picture your energy kind of grounded into the earth, or picture, your feet kind of being rooted into the earth. And basically you're grounding your energy so that you don't become so disconnected that you start to become imbalanced, and that throws off your meditation as well. Okay, something that I do, and I mentioned this in a Patreon episode, I believe, but something that I like to do when I get into my meditation is attempting to raise my frequency. And I always call in like my guides or my higher self or whatever when I do this, and I ask for assistance in raising my frequency. I mean, I'm setting an intention and then I'm also asking for assistance. So again, you can't come from a place of like begging and pleading and wishing. It's like I'm setting the intention. I like to say, I am matching the highest frequency that I have access to in this moment, and I'm asking my guides and my higher self to assist me in getting my frequency up as high as I can access. Okay. And then I give that a couple seconds to kind of work into my body. And especially when you kind of get used to it, you'll feel the physical shift. Like you feel the sensation moving throughout your body. It's like a wave of energy, or maybe it feels different for you. I don't know. Especially if you're more sensitive, you'll be able to feel that shift in the energy. The second thing that I do is just set the intention to get into that deeper brain state. So I say, okay, I'm setting the intention to move into a theta brain state, which is the ideal state to be in for deep relaxation, for REM sleep, for meditation. It's just that much deeper space. And so I go ahead and set that intention. Okay, I'm getting into theta brain state. And then I also ask, I'm going to ask my guides and my higher self to assist me in getting into that brain state and then anchoring into that state. So I'm not kind of floating in and out of like the deeper brain waves to the higher brain wave. Like I don't want to come back and forth. I want to be anchored in that theta state. It would also be a good idea to go ahead and Google like theta brain waves and, what that looks like and how that works, because I think understanding that would probably help you as well. But those are the two main steps that I take before I even really begin my meditation at all. And I'm also using this time to really relax my body, to kind of be aware of all the muscles in my body, making sure all of my muscles are unclenched. I'm a big clencher, so I need to make sure that my jaw, my shoulders, like everything is unclenched, everything is relaxed. And give yourself like at least 5 minutes of setting up all those intentions and relaxing your body. And over time, that can really speed up. The more you get used to doing it, the quicker I think you can really get into that state. But especially if you're really beginning to develop this, make sure you give yourself time to actually fully relax. Because if you try to rush into it, if you try to get straight into the meditation without getting your body fully immersed in that state, you're not going to be settled enough. You're not going to be anchored enough to really get the information that you are seeking or make the type of connection that you're wanting. And the biggest thing is truly consistency over intensity or getting it perfect. It may be difficult if you are not used to doing this yet. So like anything else, like everything we talk about, do not discount something because it doesn't go perfectly the first time or the first 10 times. This takes practice. You don't get on a bike day one and think that you're just going to magically figure it out, okay? It takes some repetition. It takes some practice. And whether you do it for 10 minutes or whether you do it for an hour, all of it is helpful. So if you only have 10 minutes, do it for 10 minutes. If you have time and you can actually sit there long enough, do it for a couple hours. Like back in 2020, when I was really starting to get deep into this meditation practice, I would wait until I have time and then literally sit there for 2 hours, just trying out different things and trying to see how deep I could get. And that truly was what opened up this world to me. It almost feels like I hit a threshold where all of a sudden it was like I was meditating on one side of this threshold, and then there was a point where it feels like I just hit this point where once I was beyond that, my meditations changed permanently. And I'll never forget it because I was in this deep, deep meditation, and all of a sudden I saw what I can only describe as a kaleidoscope of colors. And now, looking back, what I believe it is was sacred geometry, but it looked like, one of those old school kaleidoscopes that you would look in and you would twist it and all of these shapes would kind of move in and out of, with one another. And it was like in this circular motion of these connecting shapes of all different colors. That's literally what I saw in my mind's eye, was just this crazy kaleidoscope. And I just remember sitting there thinking, what am I seeing? What am I seeing right now? And so that happened like a couple days in a row. It happened the first time. And I was like, that was insane. I very clearly understood that it was like a deeper place than I had ever reached in meditation before. So the next day I attempted it again and again was able to get to that point where I was seeing these kaleidoscope movement, these kaleidoscope shapes and all these different colors. And ever since that point in time, my meditations have always been much deeper and much more clear and much more efficient. And it truly changed the way that I was able to meditate from that point on. Another thing that changed, and I'm talking about two very specific meditations that I did. Whatever happened in these couple of meditations is what changed everything. I've discussed here before how when I meditate, I already have a very sensitive body. I have to somebody else, it probably looks like convulsions or something. But during these meditations in 2020, I started in those exact two same meditations, I would start to twitch. And I'd be in this meditative space and my body would kind of twitch. And I was like, oh, what was that? Like, what? Am I okay? And they were really subtle at first. It would just be like my arm would twitch or something. I'm like, that's weird. So I keep meditating and I keep developing my practice and the twitches never go away. So now it becomes like every time I meditate, my body would twitch in some way, whether it was like my neck kind of twitching and pulling to the side or an arm twitching, or it began over time, over years. And yes, my dad's a doctor. I have looked into this, so I made sure it's not like a health issue. It's not. So don't take this as medical advice. But it only happens when I'm in meditation or when I'm in a very, very relaxed state. Also, if I set an intention to disconnect from negative energy or anything like that, I also get a twitch. And so now what I've come to understand is those twitches are shifts in my energy. Those twitches, those jerks that I experience when I am meditating are shifts in my energy that my body has become very sensitive to. And so it's kind of like it's like a twitch or a jerking that happens when my body is specifically usually like releasing energy or making a shift into a different frequency. Okay, so this very often happens when I clear my energy. I'll do a shift. When I connect with my guides, I'll get a little twitch or shift or shiver. This is very common. Now I don't even think twice about it, but it happens to me all the time. And it started out in those first two meditations and it just got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger to the point now where I recognize it'll happen in different like chakras. Sometimes I will literally get a twitch that comes directly from my solar plexus. So like right in between my ribs, I will experience almost like an electric shock that then kind of waves through my body. So it shows up in all different shapes and forms. But this was personally for me, this doesn't happen to everybody, but this was part of my meditation development and how my body started working with the energy over years and years of consistent meditation. But your gifts will open through consistent practice. You have to put the practice in. Learning knowledge about your gifts does not open up your gifts. Practicing opening up your gifts is what opens your gifts. And when I say gifts, I really just mean your unique way of connecting with your intuition, whether that is claircognizance or clairvoyance or whatever way that you get information or are able to connect the strongest. That's what I'm referring to when I say your gifts. Okay. So over time, I went from just really attempting to deepen my meditation into more intentional meditations where I'm connecting with my higher self or connecting with guides or receiving intuitive messages and things like that. When I first started, I wasn't doing any of that. I was just meditating. I was just seeing how long I could keep my energy clear. I could keep my thoughts away. I could keep my thoughts out of my general awareness. Speaking of, a tip on not letting your thoughts block you is not trying to fight them. When you are meditating and you notice that you have thoughts that are coming in through the back door, like coming in through the side of your mind, like, oh, whatever, something you were thinking about, or just a random thought, an intrusive thought, whatever it is, don't fight it. If you fight it, all that's doing is adding resistance to your mental space, which is going to make it harder. Just notice the thought, observe the thought, and then just dismiss it. So like, yep, I noticed that thought come in about what I'm going to have for lunch. I don't need that right now. I'm going to dismiss it. Don't fight it off and try to like block it and say, no, you can't come in. Let it come in, notice it, release it. And you may have to do that often. Again, the more you do it, the easier it will become and the more natural it will become so that you don't even have to really do that anymore. I rarely ever have issues now with my conscious thoughts trying to kind of invade my meditative space. I'm just used to going into that space enough that it's like muscle memory. Okay, so without this episode being too insanely long, I want to talk about different intentions that you can have within your meditation, different places you can go, different connections you can make, and things like that. Now, if you are new or in the beginning of your meditative journey, I would not try to do this from the get-go. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be confusing, and you may not get the result from it that you are hoping for, because all of the things that I'm about to talk about exist at different frequencies. Some of them are very easy to connect with. Some of them are more difficult to connect with. And you will probably need to get your body and your energy used to getting into this state to really anchor it and make those more difficult frequencies easier to access. So again, if I were just starting out, I would really focus on just getting your body into that meditative state. Like, you don't even have to have an intention. Just sit there and meditate and see how long you can just focus on letting your mind quiet. See how long you can just sit quietly in your body and kind of deconnect and try to disconnect from the physical, from your body, and really just step into a quiet mental space and then just exist there. Just exist in the quieted mind and practice that, because that is a great foundation for then being able to get into that place quickly and then set different intentions for doing various things while you're meditating. Okay, so I would do that first. Then here are some other common things that are really helpful when you are developing this practice. Okay, first of all, connecting with your higher self and connecting with your guides. Connecting with your higher self and your guides are probably the most accessible and easiest barrier to cross in terms of a starting point, because you are already so directly connected with your higher self and your guides, because your guides and your higher self are directly tuned into you. Your higher self is literally a part of you, and your guides are already directly tuned into you as they have been your entire life. So these things already have a direct anchor, a direct connection with you, so it's much easier for you to access. Plus, your higher self and your guides are already attempting to communicate with you all the time, and do communicate with you all the time, just in ways that you may perceive it as like a gut feeling or a random thought or feeling pulled towards something. A lot of times that already was your higher self or your guides. You're just not perceiving it as them, which is fine. But my point is that you're already accessing them, okay? But once you are a little bit more used to getting into a meditative state, this is where I would start. And just, again, set the intention to connect with your higher self or your guides. And I did an episode, I can't remember if this was a Patreon episode or a main feed episode, but at some point I did an episode on communicating with your higher self versus your guides specifically. And the best thing that I can tell you here is your higher self is you, right? It is your soul. It is your whole consciousness. Your guides are your support system that is there to help guide you and nudge you and protect you and assist you in different situations. They can never override your free will. They are there for support, but their job is to keep you aligned and on track with what your soul intended to do in this lifetime. Okay, so depending on, the information that you're trying to retrieve, or depending on your goal for that certain meditation, you might want to connect with one or the other, or you can connect with both. It's all about the intention you set. I would say your higher self is better for like bigger, more serious life questions, more like general, what's my path? What's my purpose? Where am I going? Like the big stuff. There is no rules around this. This is just how I approach it. Okay, I don't want to discount your higher self, like you can't go to your higher self for absolutely anything. You absolutely can, okay? This is just how I prefer to work with mine. My guides are more where I go to communicate and ask for assistance in things like the different emotions that I'm feeling or, doing this thing or that thing. Just general answers that I'm seeking around certain situations in my life. Now, keep in mind, your guides are not you. So while they can offer you advice or explanations, they can never override your free will, and they should not replace your intuitive gut feeling or inner knowing. At the end of the day, you are always the final stop for your decisions and your actions in your life. They are mentors and guides, not a replacement for your authority. Okay, for most of you, that's where I feel like a lot of us would be. For many of you, I would say this should be the main focus right now is just getting comfortable, A, getting into a meditative state, and B, accessing your guides and your higher self, because those are the easiest things to access. Beyond that, and this is where I really start to get into more of this stuff on the Patreon, but accessing your past life memories, accessing the Akashic Records, connecting with ancestors and loved ones, or even exploring like additional realms and frequencies. So again, maybe this is a stretch for some of you, totally fine. This is my perspective, my opinion, take it or leave it. But in terms of just exploring even additional realms, things like the pre-incarnation space or like, the planning process before you came into this lifetime. What did you want to do? What did you plan? Why did you plan it? Who were you planning it with? This is a specific field area that you can go to. Also, these areas of healing, places that souls kind of stop and rest and heal before moving on immediately after a passing, or if there's certain like deep trauma that's really affecting you on a soul level. There's entire spaces that are healing spaces and restorative spaces for this purpose. I just did a Patreon episode on soul families and how souls kind of come together in these clusters. I don't really like that word, but come together in these groups, these families where they tend to incarnate together over and over again. And, they're evolving kind of on similar levels. This is a place that you can tune into. Different timelines, different probabilities. So that's more like looking into the future in a psychic sense. These are all different ways that you can eventually develop your meditation practice where you feel very comfortable and able to tune your frequency to match these various spiritual spaces, energetic spaces. But it takes practice to tune into these frequencies. They're very specific. They require a certain clarity, a certain vibration. But the point I'm trying to make is that the possibilities are truly endless. And this is where your spiritual practice starts to evolve from something, very earthly and simple and day-to-day into something that completely opens up your perception of life and purpose and existence and so much more. Okay? And that is not required of you. Nobody is required to do that or to go that far. It's only what you're comfortable with. But if you are here and you're still listening, you are likely someone that will find immense value in this practice. Now, especially when you get into those higher states, I would make sure that you are, again, going back to setting intentions, set an intention to go ahead and just kind of set some protection, a protective bubble around you, protective light around you. Make sure your baseline, your nervous system is calm. And before you get fearful, remember that a lot of times if you're feeling kind of out of sorts or confused, a lot of those experiences come from dysregulation of your nervous system or your energy rather than some external force or, some negative spirit interfering or something like that. That's very rare. I would not worry about that. I would always protect your energy just to be on the safe side. It's a good practice to do no matter what. But if you are just super worried about something like attacking your space, you're just bringing your energy down, which is going to make it harder in general for you to get into the meditative state you want to be in. Okay? Also, something I want to mention, some ways that you can tell that your access is strengthening, that your ability to get into that deeper space is getting better is one, being able to do it quicker, like being able to just drop into that calm state because you're used to it, because you've practiced it, you can just get in and go. It doesn't mean you're speeding through the whole thing, but it means it's simple and quick for you to just kind of get into that space. And it no longer takes 5, 10, 15 minutes. It might take 1 minute because your body recognizes the pathway to just get there. Also, the messages and the tones just become clearer and clearer over time. There's less second guessing. There is more awareness of what the ego voice sounds like versus your intuitive voice or, information from your higher self, from your guides, from whatever. These two, I'm going to say voices, but it's not literal voices. These two voices have different frequencies. And so the more you practice, the more you will find that your ego voice, the best way I know how to explain it is that it feels different than an intuitive voice. Your ego voice has a different frequency. It feels different in your body. Your intuitive voice has a higher frequency. It has its own feeling. They feel different. I don't know how to explain it. But the more you practice it, the more you will recognize the difference because they don't quite come in the same. Okay? In the beginning, before you really can instantly recognize the difference, the best way to tell is that, again, intuitive voices will never come in making you feel panicked or afraid or fearful. That's always anxiety. That is not intuition. Also, just kind of look out for if it comes in very quickly and very just like simply, immediately, fast. A lot of times, not always, a lot of times that's your intuition. Messages do come in pretty quickly, especially if you're asking a specific question. I often find that I'm trying to ask the question in my head and it will immediately be delivered to me before I'm even done asking the question. To the point where sometimes I even stop and say, don't answer it until I'm done asking the question because it disorients me and I forget what's even happening. Let me finish asking the question in my mind before you send me an answer. And that does work. And that just helps me. Like my brain needs to have a second. But that's another way to tell your intuition from your ego. And also sometimes this is the case, sometimes it's not. But look for, especially if you're getting more of a sentence or maybe a little bit more information, if you are sometimes you can get specific phrases and sometimes you just get information and then you're the one putting words to it. It's kind of like sometimes you just get a knowing that's not phrased in any particular way. You just know. And then if you were to say it out loud, you would have to come up with the words to say it versus sometimes you get maybe a full sentence. Okay. And a lot of that has to do with what type of gift you have, again, claircognizance versus clairaudience and things like that. I've gotten both of these, but if you are receiving a sentence or a couple sentences, pay attention to how it's worded, pay attention to how it is delivered, because there are certainly times where something has been delivered to me where I go, well, I know that wasn't my ego self because I never would have phrased anything that way ever. And so sometimes just the way that it comes through, sometimes the language doesn't sound exactly like you. A lot of times, quite honestly, it's just wiser, it's smarter, it's coming from this higher frequency. And so sometimes that's a way that you can tell as well. Also, I think I'm going to do a Patreon episode this week on kind of sharing the visual place that I go every single time in meditation and why I have this specific visual place and what I do with it and how it helps me go to a bunch of different places really easily, because I started doing this naturally. And I think it's just something that really would have helped me a lot earlier if I had known that I could approach it this way. But that's a whole topic in itself. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out the Patreon. I do 4 extra episodes every single month over there, and they're usually deeper dives than I do over here. But okay, if I'm summarizing, the steps of how to get into the meditative state. First of all, remember it's consistency, consistency, consistency. Consistency over quality in the beginning. Just practicing, just trying to do it every day, even if it's for 10 minutes. Do it as often as you can, as well as you can in that moment. That's the most important thing. Okay, when you go to meditate, first thing, go ahead and ground, clear your energy, set your baseline, make sure your nervous system is calm, sit or lie down, relax all of your muscles. Basically, step 1 is just getting your body calm and clear, slowing your breath down, relaxing, making sure you're comfortable, all of that. Okay. Step 2 is setting the intention. You could also clear your energy right here. So again, I like to raise my frequency a little bit. I like to intentionally just go ahead and try to get into that theta brain state. This is when I would clear my energy or disconnect from any kind of negative energy that I might be holding on to. Okay. And from there, that's when I set the intention of what I'm going to do. And for me, I go into this visual place But whatever your intention is, whether it's connecting with your higher self or your guides, or later on, maybe a past life or Akashic Records, or like whatever it is that you want to do, make sure you have set it up already. You can't just close your eyes and immediately dive into an intention. Maybe you can if you've really developed this practice, but that's pretty difficult. From there, once you have set your intention, this is where the trickiest part comes in. It's trickiest part because this is where people, I think, tend to stumble the most, or they just question it. They don't know what to do. And I think that's because it's just really personalized. There's no one thing you have to do. This is really where whatever feels most natural to you is what will work best for you. So, like I said, I have an entire visual place. Maybe you just need like a doorway or a bridge. It's basically just kind of an image that helps your mind and your body kind of anchor to something, because your 3D brain likes symbolism. Your 3D brain likes to have something to help you really set the intention and visualize the energy. That's what really helps it step into a deeper space more easily. And that's the part that's really personalized, because that's the piece that really gets you kind of on the train to where you're trying to go. And once you're on the train, once you're getting there, once the intentions are set and you are kind of at the place, quote unquote place, at the frequency that you want to be at, that's when you can really start asking questions, setting intentions, wanting to see things, wanting to know things, wanting to experience things. All of those things become available to you once you have practiced enough to get into this place, okay? And meditation is never about escaping your life. It's about connecting with the spiritual realm in a way that supports your life so that you are in alignment, so that you have the most knowledge and information that can help put you on your highest path, that can help you have the best connection to the divine, to source, and just to have the clearest and healthiest energy that you can access, because that alone will change how you feel in your body, how you go about your day-to-day life. Okay? Not everybody needs to go into this exotic realm. A lot of times, the most life-changing information you need can be accessed just simply with your guides and your higher self. You don't have to go into any of the deep, deep stuff. That's only there if you want it or you feel like you would really benefit from it. The important thing is that you know how to approach meditation to deepen your practice, and you understand that your access to all of this expands naturally as you practice, as your nervous system feels safer, as your attention becomes easier to refine and focus. Which, again, I work with people one-on-one if you really want that personal attention and guidance on how to do that specifically in your life and with your habits and with your needs, because your alignment and your highest timeline does not look like everybody else's. If you're interested in that, or if you have questions about that, linked in the show notes. If you're interested in the Patreon, I do 4 extra episodes every single month where we deep dive into some of the more taboo and interesting topics. We also do a members meeting every month if you want to get together in a group of women and talk about spiritual topics together and kind of support one another. We have a lot of fun with that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.